If you have clutter all over your home and it's been that way for a while, it starts to feel overwhelming. Like, this is just the way life is going to be. I'm never going to be able to get a handle on it. But that's not true. And today I want to talk about figuring out the bottlenecks that cause items to accumulate so that you don't feel like chaos reigns supreme in your home the way I have felt so many times. Clutter overwhelms me because it feels shapeless, like it's everywhere and there's no way that I can organize it in my mind. But really, clutter falls into three categories. You have stuff that has a home, but you didn't put it away because you were sick or tired or depressed or whatever. Stuff that has a home, but because it's not convenient or functional, the items never get put away. And lastly, the stuff that doesn't really have a home, so it just sits around while you agonize about what to do with it. I want this video to give you a plan so that when you're looking around your house or a certain space, you know what to do with these various things, and you've got some ideas for how to prevent all the clutter from just reaccumulating. So when you're looking around, and I would definitely suggest just doing like one room or one area at a time, the very first thing you need to do is kind of see what you have and create momentum. So number one, you're going to put away everything that has a good home, that you just didn't put it away because life was lifing. When you're putting your stuff away, there are a couple of ways to do it. The way that I find most efficient is to go to whatever room or space I'm working on and clear off a space. Usually it's like a table or a bed. It can be the floor, it can be a chair, whatever. Just have a space that's designated for things that don't belong in this room or this area. So just go around, pick everything up that doesn't belong in that space and put it in your little designated area. And as you're going, maybe categorize it. For instance, this is my kids' stuff, and this is stuff that'll go up to my room. This is recycling. This is laundry room stuff. If there are other people living in your space and some of the belongings are theirs, you can either drop it off in their room and tell them to put it away, or you can have them come and get it. That's my preferred method. I'll just put everything in little piles and this is your stuff, go put it away. If you have kids that get really overwhelmed with putting their stuff away, especially younger kids or neurodivergent kids, tell them that once you're finished putting away the stuff that you're working on, that you'll swing by and see if they have any questions about what to do with their stuff. That way, A, they'll have some accountability for putting away their things, and that if they are overwhelmed or they're not sure what to do with stuff, you can troubleshoot that with them, because our goal is to definitely get our own tools, but if you have kids that are depending on you, it's to try to impart them with some tools as well. If you don't have any specific rooms or spaces that are super duper cluttered, there's just like little stuff all around, you can also get a basket or a bag, whatever you have handy, and just go around, pick up the things, and then just drop them where they go. By the time we've dealt with category 1 and put away all the things that do have a good home, then we're left with categories 2 and 3, the stuff that doesn't have a functional or a convenient home, and the stuff that doesn't have a home at all. So let's move on to category 2. When stuff has a home but it's never making it back to its home, that's when I get curious, because I don't want to just keep putting away the things that are ending up in piles. I want to go a step further when I can and figure out why these things aren't getting put away in the first place and find a solution for that so that the clutter isn't building up in the first place as much as possible. There are two things that we can do about clutter that's just not making it back to its home. The first thing is we can consider whether the home is functional. Sometimes we create homes based on what's aesthetic or what's traditional, but the item's home isn't actually functional for our home or our lifestyle. An example in my home is hair stuff. I have 5 kids and I typically help do their hair all throughout the school week. This is a task that always happens during the chaos of making breakfast, making lunches, and getting kids off to school. I began to notice that I was not having time to get the kids to put their hair stuff away after I had done their hair, because it was usually right before we ran out the door. And the other problem was my girls weren't able to find what they needed. You know how kids, sometimes something will be right in front of their face, but they can't see it. That was happening a lot, and the girls needed me to run upstairs and try to figure out where their items were, and I was busy making lunches. I was getting frustrated because the hair stuff was always all over the island. And it was just something I had to end up picking up after everybody got to school. After being frustrated about this for quite some time, I asked myself, why am I actually holding on to this concept that the kids have to have their hair stuff in their bathroom? It is not convenient for where we actually do our hair. So I decided I was going to make a kitchen hair station. It's like this little alcove right adjacent to our kitchen. And I pulled all of their hair stuff downstairs, brushes, bows, all of the potions that keep my kids' hair slicked back or curly or whatever it is, because they all have different hair types. Once everything was located in the kitchen, it was so easy for the kids to put their hair stuff back because it only took a couple of steps. And if they needed me to find something that matched their outfits, it was right there, so that wasn't a big deal either. I found that having this kitchen hair station has made it like 75% more likely that my kids will put away their hair things and all of the products. And if they don't do it, the hair station's so convenient that I'm not put out by having to pick up after them. So that's one idea, is just to think outside of the box, figure out where you're actually utilizing an item, and see if you can make that item's home where you typically use it. There are times though when you cannot change where the home is located and it's still very inconvenient. And in that case, I like to make convenience piles. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I spot people's socks laying around, or their hoodies, or whatever they took off. It's just laying where they took it off. I don't know why. I'm not a very like freakishly neat person. I'm just not, but that bothers me. And I could kind of understand it because the laundry room is on the top level of the house, and that's not where everybody's hanging out. So I decided, let me make an intentional spot for laundry piles. I'm going to put this basket on the stairs, and I'm going to tell my children, when you take off your socks or your hoodie, you do not have to run it all the way up to the laundry room, but you do need to put it in this basket if it's dirty. At the end of the day, one of the kids runs the basket up to the laundry room and dumps it out in our main hamper that we have up there. Come downstairs in the morning, I just grab the basket and put it right there on the stairs so that we're ready for a new day. And every single one of my children has done a much better job of putting their things in this basket. I am rarely seeing little clothing items all around. It's usually from my 3-year-old. So it's working out for everybody. And there are people who will say, why don't you just have your kids put it up right away? Just train them to do that. Here's the answer. I want to teach them that having a clean home or a tidy home is not about perfectionism. It's about thinking through things, like solving problems, because cleaning is a logistical thing after all. It's not about you being a good person. It's not about how hard you work. It's just I need things clean. I need to know where things are. It's logistical, okay? If a task is easier, there is less resistance to doing it. When there is less resistance, you will be more consistent. That's when real change and progress gets made. So that wraps up category 2, but hopefully either making intentional convenience piles or rethinking a home that's more functional will help you not have so much clutter around your house. This is like a thing that has really caused a lot of positive change in my home and really cuts back on the work that I have to do tidying up. So all for that. Okay, on to category 3, stuff that doesn't have a home. Occasionally it will have like a pseudo home, but it just doesn't go there. So it always ends up in piles again. I want to start by saying that when your items don't have a home, it is because you are not using them regularly. If we don't use items often, if at all, it ends up creating a lot of visual chaos for us. And that affects us mentally and it affects us functionally. And life's too short for that. So let's decide what to do with the clutter that doesn't have a home. The very first thing that we're going to do is declutter things that we know in our hearts we're never going to use again. Before I start on this, I want to tell you, I am not a minimalist. I have not got it all figured out. There are so many things in my home that are still pretty cluttery that I need to release. Like, I know I'm not going to use them, but I can't declutter a lot at one time. It's just something I figured out about myself. So I just release a little at a time. I don't try to make it stressful on myself. I'm not perfectionisty about it. I just like whatever I feel like I have the capacity to let go of, I'll let go of. If you have a lot of stuff that probably needs to exit your home too. Just take a breath. This is not going to be a pressure situation. You can make a lot of progress over a length of time if you're consistent with it, which is what I've done. I always try to push myself to be out of my comfort zone as far as giving things away, because you know, my items, whether I use them or I don't use them, make me feel a sense of security. So I definitely want to push myself beyond my comfort zone, otherwise I'm not getting rid of anything. But I don't want to make it so demanding and stressful that I never want to do that again. I want to make it easy breezy so that the next time it's on my schedule to declutter, I'm not like, ugh, and avoid it. So just throwing that out there before we get started. Okay, so we're dealing with things that we know we're not going to use again. Go into whatever room or space that you want to work on, and you're going to have a box or a bag that has donations written on it, and you're going to have another one for trash. And we're just going to do one category of things, like maybe it's clothes. We'll talk about my closet, for example. If you are not new to my content, you know that I have a great difficulty letting go of clothing, even if I have not worn it in a decade or much, much more. With compassion, I first acknowledge why I don't want to get rid of these things. I don't have a ton of room in my budget to buy myself new clothing. And it's natural that that makes me want to hold on to what I have. Starting out by recognizing that I have a legitimate reason for having an emotional attachment to these items, I then can just ask myself some questions about logistics. Does it serve me at all to hang on to this dress that I have not worn in 15 years because I don't have money to buy a new dress? It doesn't. It doesn't actually serve me. Is it better for me to have 3 pairs of jeans, even if one of them has giant holes in the crotchal area? Or is it better for me to let go of those jeans and just have 2 pairs of jeans that I know that I can count on and can sit down, crisscross applesauce without freaking everyone out? It literally gives me a sense of comfort to hold on to the pants. I just ask myself, does that make sense? Why is that giving you comfort? You can't actually wear these pants. If I am looking at what to wear every morning and half of the clothes in my closet, if not more, don't fit me or aren't even in style anymore if they were to fit me, that's depressing. It's stressful. I don't like getting dressed. And the more I release clothes that are not an option for me to wear, the less stressful it is. If what's in my closet actually fits and it'll do, that reduces the decision fatigue that I'm going to have definitely throughout the day. And I don't want to start my day like that, so I'm working on it. I'm working on donating items, or if things have holes in them, throwing them in the trash and just letting them go with the blessing that they are going to brighten someone's day, make someone feel like $1 million in this pretty dress that I just can't wear anymore, and that's okay. Another caveat is if you have clothes that don't work right now, but you can see yourself legitimately being able to wear them in the future, great. You don't have to get rid of those, but fold them nicely, stick them in a bin or a bag, get them out of your way, out of your main visual space, so that you are not seeing all of the clutter of things that are just not options. If it's seasonal stuff too, you can put that in a box or whatever and stick it as far out of the way as possible, either up high, up low, in the back, whatever, so that what you actually will wear is what's in front of you. Now we're going to move on to the next step, which is dealing with sentimental items that we may never use, we may never hang on the wall, whatever. But they're sentimental. We're not ready to give them up. Maybe we never will be. We're gonna just focus on gathering the sentimental items we wanna hang on to and finding a place to keep them that's out of the way. I have these pretty boxes that I keep for my kids, and I throw anything that's super special in there. I don't worry about what to do with it. This is not the season in my life for making scrapbooks or to organize things like that. It's just not. If you're in a season of life when you can do that organization, that's great, but just do that later. First, get all of those things that are cluttering up your spaces, put them all in one space, let them live in that space for right now. Our last step in dealing with things that don't have a home is to deal with the items that we're not sure if we want to keep. It takes enormous mental effort for some of us to decide whether we will use this item or not. Maybe we spent a lot of money for it and that's why it's hard to part with. Maybe our ideal self will use that clay and make really cool crafts in the future, but it's just not happening. But we can't let go of the idea that one day we'll be that ideal self that has the time to craft. And then of course there's the thing where we are afraid as soon as we donate it, we're gonna need it again and have to repurchase it. But I want you to be honest with me. How many times has that happened? It is very, very rare that I've ever let go of an item and needed it again enough to rebuy it. Instead of forcing your brain to decide whether this is an item that you need to keep or not, I just want you to gather items from around the house that are very will I, won't I, and just put them in a space. If as you're gathering the items you think I can let go of this, throw it in the donation bag, or if it's not in good shape, throw it in the trash. But if your mind is like struggling, just stick it in a bag, stick it in a box. Consolidating is plenty of work and it's enough to make a difference in how your home looks and feels. But ultimately, having a bunch of stuff you are indecisive about keeping is still a drain on you and it takes up space in your home. So once you're ready, you can start making some decisions about this pile of stuff. We're going to help our brains understand what we have and get realistic about its place in our lives. The way we're going to do that is we're going to categorize the clutter. Grab a Ziploc bag to store all the cords you're afraid you'll need at some point. Put everything artsy into a bin or out of the way spot in your home. Box up the small appliances you can't remember using last. Get all the papers together that you aren't sure whether you should file or shred. Time is very wobbly, especially for those of us with ADHD, and we can have inaccurate estimates of when we last used something. Like I'll think, oh, I didn't use that long ago, but if I actually sit down and think about it, it's been like 4 years, and that is a long time. The last thing to do is decide on a timeline of when to review these things. Writing down the date helps us establish the item's usefulness in a very concrete way. You can mark it on your calendar or set an alarm on your phone for like whatever you think is appropriate, 3 months, 6 months, a year. Note what you're going to be looking through, whether it's small appliances or the art supplies or whatever. If decluttering is part of your cleaning routine, you can note the next time you're decluttering what you're going to look through. When you get to that date and you look through those items, again, you don't have to deal with all the items, but just kind of let the emotions relax and just look at the date. Think about the last time you needed this thing and just ask yourself, would someone else really benefit from this thing that I am taking care of and storing and worrying about, but never using or enjoying? I know I've really emphasized this throughout the video, but if you have a lot of clutter, the best gift you can give to yourself is to expect it to take some time. I spent many years drowning in my belongings, but in these past few years that I've worked on consistently decluttering what I can and finding homes for things that belong, my home has become a different place. It is so much easier to take care of, functions a lot better, it feels a lot more peaceful, and this positive change would never have happened in my life if I would have kept doing the same thing that I always tried to force myself to do, which was tackle all of it and get all of it done in like a weekend or over the span of a couple of weeks. I used to see these YouTube videos of people who were doing like extreme decluttering or whatever, and it was so inspirational, but it just didn't work for me. And if you resonate with that, it's probably one of those things where you will make a lot more progress if you don't have a perfectionist mindset about getting this done. I hope this video has helped you have a plan about what to do, whether it's just getting that momentum by putting away all the things that have a home, or giving you some ideas about convenience piles, or, you know, changing your items home so that it's more functional, or dealing with the stuff that doesn't have a home, just conceptualizing how to break those categories down so that you can understand what you have and understand how to go through it from time to time. If you have questions, or if you have comments, if you have ideas that have worked for you, please leave them in the comments below so that our community can learn from each other. I love seeing what you guys have to say. I really thank you for being here, and I will see you next time.